UFC Vegas 79 is coming up this weekend, and guys, today I'm going to be breaking down every fight on the card. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another video. If you are new here, my name is Kyle. I'm your guy with too many YouTube channels, and welcome back to another full card breakdown and prediction video. This time for, like I said, UFC Vegas 79 Fiziev versus Gamrot. This is actually a very, very underrated card, guys. I'm excited for this. If there's any fight that you would like to skip forward to, timestamps will be there in the pinned comment and the description down below. Check them out, guys. I'd appreciate you watching any part of the video, but let's start off with the early prelims. And guys, we're going to start off with a fight that I'm not entirely sure about because we have Montserrate Rendon versus Tamires Vidal. Now, both of these girls, we've seen Vidal one time so far in the UFC, but before that, this is a girl that has a little bit of a wide range of skill sets, but I'm a little bit unsure because, of course, coming in before the UFC, the talent pool just wasn't as good, but she can go to decision, she can strike, she can get some submissions. She has a very, very nice mix of wins, and she's been an okay fighter from what I've seen. I really looked at her once she came into LFA. If you guys know on the channel, I'm a big LFA fan. There's a lot of great talent that comes out of there. So then we ended up seeing her in the UFC, and she got a very, very nice KO. But then again, we still haven't seen her fight anybody of significance. So I don't really know what to think of her yet. She seems like she's an okay fighter, but she's taking on Montserrate Rendon, who, it's a problem because I also don't know what to think of her because she's 34 years old now. She's getting older, and while she's 5-0, coming into the UFC, there's this nothing but, look at this talent pool, man. Look at this talent pool. And she, seems to have an okay skill set, but she's losing split decisions to fighters with horrible records and fighters that, quite frankly, nobody knows about, and fighters that, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but they kind of suck. So I can't trust Montserrate Rendon coming into the UFC, taking on somebody in Tamires Vidal who we've seen and we know what she's capable of. I gotta pick Vidal in this fight. Moving on to the next fight, guys, we have Mizuki Inoue taking on Goldy. Now, a lot of people pay attention to Goldy, but of course, you don't pay attention for Goldy for the right reasons. Coming to the UFC, she looked like she had potential coming off the Contender Series, you know what I mean? But then, since then, it's been nothing but kind of inactivity and subpar performances, less than subpar. This girl came in, people thought okay, you know what, she can bring in some nice boxing, she's a good kickboxer, but she just hasn't been able to put anything together, and her only win being against Emily Whitemare, and that's not even a win that you should really take into consideration. So 6-3 coming off the Contender Series, she did not live up to any of the hype one little bit, and people are just paying attention to 24K because, of course, the way she looks, a lot of people like her. But she's taking on Mizuki Inoue, who also has been relatively unimpressive because coming into the UFC, of course, even coming in, nobody really wanted to. Nobody was saying anything about this girl, you know what I mean? Nothing stood out about this girl because she came in, got a win, which some people thought that she could have lost, but then it's been nothing but inactivity. 3 years ago, she lost to Amanda Lemos, and while that loss ended up aging well, we've seen nothing from this girl that makes me go, oh, okay, she can win this fight. But the same thing goes for Goldy, you know? So both of these early prelims, man, I don't know what to think of them. I don't know what to think. I gotta go with Goldy, though, as much as I don't want to, because she's at least been in there, man. She's at least been in there with better competition. Mizuki, I can't ride with her. I cannot. This is a tough fight. This is honestly a coin flip fight, but if you made me pick, I pick Goldy. I feel like she'll kickbox her way to decision. That's my guess. Moving on to the next fight, we have Jake Collier versus Mohammed Usman. Now, I want to start with Mohammed Usman because he, honestly, guys, he surprised me. I'm not saying he's a crap fighter or anything like that. I just didn't think that he would have look at it this way. Coming to the UFC, I thought Zach Pauga would beat him. I thought he would. And then I thought that Junior Taffa would beat him. But then he just comes in and looks really good. So I don't know what, Mohammed Usman, he just proved me wrong twice in a row. But this time I actually do think he's going to win. He's taking on Jake Collier, who 13-9 explains it for himself. He comes in, he swings, he usually loses. That's a thing. Jake Collier, there's honestly, I mean, no disrespect at all, but there's nothing that's good about him. He comes in, his only win being against Chase Sherman, and Chase Sherman is fighting himself. There's nothing good about Chase Sherman either. But then, as soon as he takes on anybody who is just a little bit better, he loses. And I think he's going to lose to Mohammed Usman too. Mohammed Usman will be big. I don't know if he'll be necessarily bigger, but he'll definitely be stronger. He'll have better cardio, and while his cardio isn't necessarily strength, it'll be better. He'll have more power, and while anything can happen in the heavyweight division, I think Usman could wrestle, He can strike. Whatever he wants to do, Jake Collier, I believe he will do. And Mohammed Usman is going to be my pick to win this fight. Moving on to the next fight, we have Jacob Malkoun taking on Cody Brundage. I'll start with Jacob Malkoun. Now, Jacob Malkoun is a very good wrestler. He gets a lot of takedowns, and he does a really, really good job of making you worry about the takedowns. And then he can he can be really sneaky with his striking, but of course the game plan is primarily going to be wrestling, which is probably the same game plan as Cody Brundage. Jacob Malkoun, he's looked good as of recent, but of course, like, he has his fair shares of wins and losses since he came into the UFC, and he's looked pretty good coming to the UFC. Like, I think this guy he has the potential. He has really, really good potential at middleweight, but I'm not entirely sure how he's going to do, but I do believe Cody Brundage is the guy to do it. Cody Brundage, okay, I have been like defending Cody Brundage because I'm like, he's better than this. His wrestling is okay. It's just like, he can come in there, he can control you, but the gas tank, you gotta fix the gas tank, man. So with these 2 losses, I excuse them, which I shouldn't have, man. I shouldn't have. I'm like, he's better than these 2 losses, but this last performance, I'm completely off the Cody Brundage train now, and I believe this fight was on short notice, but it doesn't even matter to me. This was one of the worst performances I have ever seen in a fighter. Ever. He kept going for a half-ass guillotine, which didn't work, and then he ended up going to his back and not trying to get up. He gassed out in absolutely no time and did nothing but turtle the entire fight. He's coming off of one of the worst performances I've ever seen in a fighter, and that's why I'm picking Jacob Malkoun. Jacob Malkoun has cardio, he has wrestling, and while the wrestling, like 30 seconds into the fight, while it may be a little bit competitive there, Jacob Malkoun is going to be my pick. He's going to take over and probably win a comfortable decision. But then again, Brundage might gas out. Who knows? Like, I am so completely off the Brundage train now. Malkoun's my pick. Moving on to the next fight, guys, this is a really interesting fight. We have Tim Means taking on Andre Fialho. Now, both guys have been on a little bit of a losing streak, but I will argue Andre's losing streak is much, much worse, you will see, because coming into the UFC, of course, like, he's been kind of all over the place. He's been fighting in other promotions. He's looked good outside, but then he came into the UFC. He looked like he was going to have a little bit of promises. Boxing, he's a very good boxer, but the problem is, we found out he has a little bit of a chin issue. Jake Matthews knocked him out, Muslim Salkov knocked him out, and Joaquin Buckley knocked him out. While those are good fighters, okay, he didn't look good, man. He just did not look good in these fights. He just breaks down. He comes in, wants a box dude. He's a good boxer, man. He's a good boxer, but I don't think his chin can hold up. He's taking on Tim Means, who also, he's been in the UFC forever, man. 39 years old. This dude has a ton of experience. Has fought the who's who. He looked very, very good throughout his career, and he's had his ups, he's had his downs. He's been one of those fighters, you know what I mean? He's just been around, experienced, fought everybody, okay? But then, right now, he is on a really, really rough losing streak against Kevin Holland, Max Griffin, which some people thought that he won. I personally thought that he lost this fight, and recently to Alex Morono, which, to be honest with you, these losses aren't too bad to have, but then you could argue the same for Andre Fialho. But, like, they lost to good fighters, but Andre got destroyed. Tim Means put up a fight. You know what I mean? That's the thing. Here's the problem, though. I can see both fighters winning this fight. I can see Tim Means coming in there with that, making it a little dirty in there, like the technical chaos that he likes to use, and I can see him chinning Andre Fialho. I really can. But the problem is I can also see Fialho coming in and boxing somebody who is a very, very slow at this age in his career. 39 years old, Tim Means. This is tough. Really, really tough to pick, guys. Tim Means is so tough. I don't think Andre Fialho will be able to get him out of there. But the problem is Tim Means is significantly slower from what he once was. His age is completely showing in his fights. I gotta pick Tim Means, though, man. I can't pick somebody who got knocked out in their last few fights. This fight's gonna come in. They're probably gonna make it dirty, and I can't trust Andre's chin. Against my better judgment, I'm going to pick a 40-year-old in Tim Means. Tough fight, though. Tough fight. Certainly not going to bet on this fight. Moving on to the next fight, we have Miles Johns taking on Dan Argueta. Now, I'm very excited for this fight because I love watching Dan Argueta fight. This dude is very good. So I'll start with him, okay? He has been, I started paying attention to LFA. Very good fighter, very good grappler, and he's finally getting a little bit of recognition in the UFC and MMA community. So he's looked good outside of the UFC, but then he came into the UFC and suffered his first loss against Damon Jackson, which, in my opinion, is very forgiving because I believe Damon Jackson is a very, very underrated and underappreciated fighter. People don't understand that this dude is serious. So then he bounced back with a very, very nice win against Nick Aguiar, but then this last fight, 2 months ago against Ronnie Lawrence, he was looking incredibly good in this fight. And this is a fight where I was like, I don't know who's going to win, man. I was so excited for this fight. So excited. He looked dominant. But then the ref made an error, and the fight ended up being a no contest. So Dan Argueta is very, very good in my mind. I'm excited to see this guy fight. He's a very good grappler with stand-up to back it up. He's taking on Miles Johns, who unfortunately only has the stand-up game, you know? So, like, I'm not saying, like, he sucks anywhere. It's just Miles Johns is primarily a boxer. He'll want to counter you, and I have a little bit of a visitor. Excuse me. Hi, Sonny. How you doing? Hi. Sorry about that. So, Miles Johns, he has had his ups and downs so far. We kind of know what he's about. He likes to sit back. He likes to counter. He's had his fair share of KOs. He's looked like he has hands. He has looked pretty good. Sorry, my dog is staring at me. She thinks I'm talking to her. Hi. Sorry about that, everybody. But then, of course, like, it's tough to say with him because he can look really good, but he's relatively inactive, and he kind of relies on his counters a little bit too much. I can very well see Dan Argueta coming in and a wrestling heavy game plan, and I love how dominant this guy looks on the ground. I wasn't sure if he was going to be able to out-grapple Ronnie Lawrence, but he started doing that. And that's when I'm like, okay, Dan Argueta really seems like he could be something special. I'm high on this guy. I like him. I think he's going to take over Miles Johns in this fight. I think he has more options to explore here, and I don't think Miles Johns will be able to catch him. While it's always possible, Miles Johns, he carries some very nice power, especially later on to the fight. Dan Argueta is going to be my pick for this fight. Moving on to the next fight, and guys, besides the main event, this is the fight that I am most excited for. This might be fight of the night, okay? It really might. We have Charles Jourdain taking on Ricardo Ramos. Both guys are so good at what they do. Both guys love to fight heavy. Both guys have nice not nice pressure. That's just Jourdain. Excuse me. I was going to get into that. Both guys have very nice kickboxing, Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu. Like, these two are very well-rounded, and I'm very excited to see this fight. So starting off with Charles Jourdain. We kind of know the gist of Charles Jourdain. He's been in the UFC for a very long time. Very active fighter. He's looked good. He's had performances. Well, even when he loses, especially against Shane Burgos here, a lot of people thought that he won this fight. In my opinion, Shane Burgos won this fight, but honestly, that fight could have gone either way. But then we saw him against Nathaniel Wood, where unfortunately he did take a loss there. But Charles Jourdain is fighting very good fighters. His losses are aging very well, but then he just had this very nice, clean win over Kron Gracie, but unfortunately, that win doesn't mean much. So it's Kron Gracie, but he did exactly what everyone expected him to. Coast 2 decision, looked very good doing so. Ricardo Ramos, been in the UFC for a little while now. He's looked very good. He's also lost to very nice talent. This is why I'm so excited for this fight. This guy can do everything, and he's been in there with such good guys, same as Charles Jourdain. Both guys have skill sets everywhere. Both guys are really good. The reason why I'm leaning towards Charles Jourdain in this fight, and I'm kind of like a 75-25 on my pick here. I'm going to pick Charles Jourdain. Ricardo Ramos seems to, in the past, have had a little bit of a weakness to heavy pressure fighters. Charles Jourdain is fantastic at that, especially as the fight continues. Like, this dude will turn it on in the third round, and he'll go right at you. And that's why he's so exciting and so exciting to watch fight. So I can very well see that happening. Even if Ramos has a very good first round, wins the first round, I believe as the fight goes on, Charles Jourdain will look a little bit better than him. But Ramos is also a very good fighter. I'm so excited for this fight. Charles Jourdain's going to be the pick. About a 75% confidence level, if that makes sense. Moving on to the next fight, we have Bryan Battle taking on AJ Fletcher. This is going to be also a very exciting fight. Bryan Battle, I am very high on as a fighter. Coming to the UFC, he's looked very good. He's been, I don't want to say like completely dominating his opponents, but he's looked very good in all of his fights. Besides this one against Rinat Fakhretdinov. And now I will come back to this fight because this performance has something to do with AJ Fletcher, but he bounced off of a really nice win right now against Gabe Green with a very quick KO. He's taken on AJ Fletcher, who looked great on the Contender Series, looked great outside the UFC. Coming into the UFC, people were like, oh man, this dude could be something special, but then he suffered two really rough losses, but they were to really good competition, so make of that what you will. He's coming off of a very nice win, though, against Themba Greenbow, but it's tough how you want to take the Themba Greenbow situation. So when these two come in, both of these guys have the hearts of a champion, man. They are so in there determined to win. That's why it's going to be fun. I feel like this fight's going to be a war. We know both guys can go to war, okay? They are very good. I hear a lot of people talking about AJ Fletcher and having the wrestling advantage, which I do believe he does have the wrestling advantage, but I think people are overrating it like crazy because I believe Bryan Battle does have good defense. Everybody's like, okay, Bryan Battle got held up on the ground against Rinat Fakhretdinov. That's Rinat Fakhretdinov. Like, this dude is such a good fighter, such a good wrestler. I guarantee you he would take down everybody in that division. I wholeheartedly believe that. Rinat holding him down and Bryan Battle doing nothing but trying his very best to fight out of it. I believe that if somebody else was on top of Bryan Battle, he would have fought out of it. He would have got back up to his feet. So AJ Fletcher being able to take down Bryan Battle, if that happens, I believe Bryan Battle will fight through it, and I believe he will get back to his feet. He should be the better wrestler, AJ Fletcher. That should be the only point in the fight where Bryan Battle should have a little bit of a weakness, but I feel like he can overcome that with his 10-inch reach advantage and how dangerous Bryan Battle is on the feet. I'm picking him to win. I'm very confident in saying so. I like Bryan Battle a lot in this matchup, and I don't know what it is, if it's updated, but Tapology at the time recording this video, I'm minus 195. I think it should be more than that. My pick is going to be Bryan Battle. Moving on to the next fight, we have another rematch. I don't know why I said another, but we have a rematch between Marina Rodriguez and Michelle Waterson, who is now Michelle Waterson Gomez. So, first time around, Marina Rodriguez pretty much just coast to do decision. Guys, long story short, okay, well, you know what? Marina Rodriguez looked very good in the division. She looked like she could be something special, okay, but she's coming off of two really, really rough losses. Really rough losses. And the Amanda Lemos one's a little bit excusable, but I don't like her last performance. She just didn't look good. She didn't look good, and I believe it's her age finally catching up to her. She's 36 years old. That's really tough in the strawweight division, especially because women age really, really hard, you know what I mean? But speaking of aging difficult, Michelle Waterson, 18-11 at this point, has not looked good. Her only win being a split decision against Angela Hill, which I believe Angela Hill won this fight. I'm looking at her like she's coming off of an insane losing streak. She's not dangerous. She has submissions, but Marina Rodriguez, guys, Michelle Waterson Gomez is done. That's what I believe. Just like Miesha Tate, I don't care who she's against. I'll bet against her. Michelle Waterson is slow now. She's not dangerous. She doesn't have the power. And Marina Rodriguez, at least, and while she also looked slow in her last fight, she will definitely, this fight's going to stay standing, and Marina Rodriguez is probably going to pick her apart, just like we saw in their last fight together. Give me Marina Rodriguez in this fight, but you know what? Strawweight women's division, anything can happen, you know what I mean? But I can't. Like, I cannot pick Michelle Gomez. Moving on to the next fight, a fight that's going to hurt my heart because I am a big fan of both these guys. We have Bryce Mitchell finally returning, and he's taking on Dan Ige. Let me start with Dan Ige, okay? I will say, if you guys, of course, if you're watching this channel, I would imagine you are a hardcore MMA fan. And if that's the case, you would know that Dan Ige is way better than his 17-6 record. This dude is constantly fighting the best of the best. This dude is constantly having close fights. He is a very, very good fighter. In all of his losses, he fought with heart, he fought with determination, and even that Josh Emmett fight, he definitely won that fight. So I don't even want to talk about that one. But he's come off, like, his losses have aged so well, and he fights through every single one of them, and he's a good fighter. He looked good, man. So he's bouncing off of two really, really nice wins, one against Damon Jackson, another against Nate Landwehr, which Nate Landwehr really put a pace on him, and Dan Ige handled it very well for 2 rounds, like very, very well. He was picking him apart, almost finishing Nate Landwehr, but then again, Nate's pressure did get to him in the 3rd round, and he started to fade a little bit, but Dan Ige ultimately did look really good, especially in the first 2 rounds of this fight. He almost found a finish. He's taking on Bryce Mitchell, who, coming to the UFC, looked fantastic, steamrolling his opponents, looking good. Everybody was on the Bryce Mitchell train, but then, unfortunately, he ran into Ilia Topuria. That's a toughie. I think there's absolutely no shame in losing to Ilia Topuria, but he got embarrassed in this fight. Ilia ragdolled him, outstruck him, did what he wanted with him. It worries me because Dan Ige, this is a tough pick. This is a very tough pick. I'm trying to do MMA math, even though MMA math doesn't work. Bryce Mitchell beat a striker dangerous like Edson Barboza and really handily beat him, okay? The pressure was able to get to him. He was able to get to him with the pressure. I feel like Bryce Mitchell will come into the pressure like Nate Landwehr tried to bring in against Dan Ige, but the pressure won't be nearly as much. Bryce Mitchell will get in your face, he'll have a little bit of dirty striking, and then look to take you down. It's like he's better at jiu-jitsu than Nate Landwehr, but the game plan is kind of going to be similar. Get in your face, make it dirty, and then take you down. Dan Ige, and I'm thinking this is their last performance, guys. Dan Ige handled that pressure from Nate Landwehr so well, and he was able to clip him and almost finish the fight on multiple occasions. I feel like that same thing might happen to Bryce Mitchell. Bryce Mitchell's coming off of a really rough injury too. His last fight was 8 months ago. I thought it was a little bit more than that, to be honest with you, but Dan Ige, I can't trust him with his injury. Dan Ige, I love the way he looked in his last fight, and Bryce Mitchell will not be putting on the same pressure that Nate Landwehr will be putting on. I feel like Dan Ige will stop every advance that Bryce Mitchell has, and I believe even if Bryce Mitchell's able to get it to the ground, then I could see him doing very well. I just don't think he will, man. I think Dan Ige is going to keep catching him and eventually find a KO somewhere in the 2nd round. Give me Dan Ige. It's going to hurt my heart if Bryce Mitchell loses again, but I got Dan Ige, man. I'm picking him to win. Moving on to the main event, we have Rafael Fiziev taking on Mateusz Gamrot. Guys, this fight is a close fight. Oh my god, I'm so excited for this fight, guys. I'm so hyped for this fight. So Rafael Fiziev coming to the UFC, fantastic. Steamrolling people, the striking looked great. Very fast striker, very powerful striker, very accurate striker. He looked so good in the UFC until he ran into Rafael dos Anjos. While he did find a finish there, he didn't look so good in that fight, but then he really didn't look good against Justin Gaethje. He looked good at the beginning of the fight, but Justin Gaethje hit him with strikes that were too powerful and damaging his face way too much. He never quit in that fight, but Rafael Fiziev finally met his match against Justin Gaethje. He's taking on Mateusz Gamrot, who, in my opinion, I was picking this guy to be a champion one day. Coming to the UFC, I was stunned by his performances. His technical ability is very, very good. He's a very good striker, very good wrestler, has very good grappling. He's looked so good, but then he fought Arman Tsarukyan in a fight where, of course, most people thought he lost. I also thought he lost, but I thought it was close enough where you can't really complain about it. This isn't one of the most technical and greatest fights I've ever seen in my life. I took nothing but good things away from this fight for Gamrot. But then, I'm so confused about this Beneil Dariush performance because I thought that Gamrot would absolutely destroy him, but it didn't happen. Beneil Dariush actually embarrassed Gamrot a little bit. That's why some people I see picking Rafael Fiziev, because Beneil Dariush once he clocked Mateusz Gamrot, it was really affecting him. Fiziev can definitely do that, but then he bounced back on a short notice win against Jalen Turner. Looked very good doing so, was able to control him. This fight is very, very tough. Very tough to predict. I think Gamrot's a good enough striker where he can hang with Rafael Fiziev, but Fiziev might be just too quick for him on the feet. Too quick for him on the feet, has very good takedown defense. I don't know if Gamrot will be able to get him to the ground. If I had to guess, it'll be tough, but yes, there'll be points where we'll take it to the ground. There'll be points where Fiziev defends it. I think this is going to be a very back and forth fight. I think this is kind of a 50-50 matchup. I'm going to pick Rafael Fiziev ever so slightly because of his striking speed and the magnitude that he brings with that speed and power, especially at the beginning of the fight. I don't think he's going to put Gamrot away, but I think he is going to put some damage on Gamrot, and I think Fiziev is more likely to win this fight, although I am not sure about this fight one little bit. Give me Fiziev for the win. But guys, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Let me know what your picks will be down below in the comment section. If you'd like to continue watching the Clenbat channel, there'll be 2 videos on screen for you to check out right here. I will see you either there or in the next video, guys. Take care.